Yes, we are ready.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. Today is Wednesday, November 15th. We are here for the Orange Township Board of Trustees zoning hearing. Robin, please call the roll.
Mrs. Faust.
Here.
Ms. Knapp.
Here.
Mr. Ringo. Here.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic Okay, Rob, please give us the opening.
Sure. So we are here to discuss rezoning case CON-23-03, also known as Orange Cove. The applicant is John Wicks. The site is located at 2955 East Orange Road. The rezoning request is to rezone approximately 11.684 acres of land zoned farm residential to a single family residential district for the construction of 21 single family residential homes. Again, this is 3 parcels totaling approximately 11.684 acres. The site is located on the north side of East Orange Road. The applicant is requesting to rezone these 3 parcels to the SFPRD district and then split that parcel into 21 single-family residential lots. Proposed development will comply with all of the SFPRD standards with the exception of 4 divergences that are requested by the applicant. Those divergences pertain to number of lots on a single acre, side and rear setbacks, as well as maximum lot coverage. The surrounding area to the north is single-family planned residential district. To the south, to the east are farm residential districts, FR1 zoning, and then to the west is both farm residential and single-family planned residential district. The parcels in question are located in sub-area 11 of the 2018 Comprehensive Land Use Plan, known as Planning Orange. The plan recommends single-family infill development in that sub-area with a maximum density of 2 units per acre with centralized sewer. The proposed rezoning does comply with this recommendation. On the following page, Exhibit A, you can see the site plan that would show how the 3 parcels would be combined and then split into 21 separate lots with additional space. In terms of density and unit count, the development is compliant with the maximum permitted density, proposing 21 lots. The density would be roughly 1.8 units per acre. Divergence is requested for more than 3 lots on any 1 acre, but the development does comply with the total gross density for the lots. The open space would exceed the minimum standards. The amount of open space is proposed at 28.7%. Parking, the development would comply with all the SFPRD parking standards. In terms of minimum floor area, development text specifies that the minimum building square footage would be 1,800 square feet, which exceeds the SFPRD requirement of 1,000 square feet. As a reminder, mobile homes are not permitted within the SFPRD. For landscaping, the planning list lists Norway spruce, autumn blaze maple, and flowering dogwood trees to be planted throughout the district, both for street trees outside of the right-of-way, as well as for screening. In terms of development standards, minimum lot depth and width are reduced for some of the lots as permitted with the single-family cluster housing provision. So while these are not specifically called out as divergences, due to the permitted use of cluster housing within the SFPRD code, 7 of the 21 proposed lots would be smaller than the SFPRD standard. So specifically lots 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10. So lots 2 through 6, 9, and 10, 7 of the 21 lots would have the following dimensions. Minimum lot size of 8,400 square feet as opposed to the standard of 10,125 square feet. Minimum lot width of 70 feet as opposed to the standard of 75, and minimum lot depth of 120 feet as opposed to the standard of 135. 2 divergences are also requested for reduced side and rear yard setbacks, and 1 divergence again is requested for increased maximum lot coverage. We go over those 4 divergences in greater detail. The first one is from section 10.07A, maximum units on any single acre. divergence is requested to allow more than 3 dwellings per acre, so that cluster housing as defined in section 10.03C can be built. Again, development still complies with the overall gross density of 2 dwelling units per acre. A divergence is requested from section 10.07E, the side yard setback. This is a divergence of 5 feet total, which would reduce the minimum side yard setback to 7.5 feet from 12.5 feet. Development would still be compliant with section 21.03, which is the structure separation requirement, which requires a 15-foot separation between all homes. Section 10.07G, rear yard setback, divergence of 10 and 13 feet is requested, reducing the setback from 35 feet to 25 feet for primary structures and 12 feet for accessory structures. The fourth and final divergence is from section 10.07H, which would increase the maximum allowed lot coverage on any single lot from 25% to 32%. Additionally, tree preservation zones are shown on the north and northwest portions of the property, having 25 feet depth on the north side and 15 feet of depth on the northwest and northeast sides. Additionally, a 6-foot privacy fence is shown on the southwest and southern portions of the property. In terms of other agencies and recommendations, the Orange Township Zoning Commission did recommend approval of this application with a 5-0 vote at their meeting on October 24th, 2023. The Delaware County Regional Planning Commission did recommend conditional approval at their meeting on August 31st, 2023, subject to the following recommendations from regional planning staff. A new drive, the 4 recommendations being: 1, a new drive location should be worked out with the neighboring property owner prior to the township approving the rezoning request. 2, the minimum side yard setback should not be less than 10 feet. 3, minimum rear yard setback should not be less than 30 feet. 4, the required minimum lot size, width, and depth should be met. The Orange Township Fire Department has reviewed and approved street layout for this proposed development. Just a note on kind of the process and where we are. So Delaware County Regional Planning and the Orange Township Zoning Commission have both given their recommendations. Those are non-binding recommendations. The final vote is up to the trustees this evening. In terms of approval from other agencies, we are aware that there's a perennial stream on the site. There are some drainage concerns with this application. Those would be handled in the engineering process, which comes after zoning approval. That is handled by the Delaware County Engineer's Office. And each home would also be required to have what they call a desk permit, which is drainage, erosion, and sediment. But those approvals are independent of the zoning that we are handling. Zoning staff does recommend approval of this application as it complies with the recommendations in the 2018 comprehensive plan. That's all I have for the time being.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ricks, you have a presentation for us?
I do. Good evening, trustees. John Wicks, 2973 East Orange Road. My development company is Real Property Design and Development. I'm also the co-owner of the property with my wife, Nikki. Here to present the Orange Cove project. I'm going to try not to duplicate too much of what Robin said, but Nikki and I have been residents of Orange Township since 2008, and we bought this property in 2014, where we raised our 4 kids through the schools, and they're gone now. So we're thinking about the next stages of our life. We purchased the property always thinking it would be developed into something. So I'd like to give you a little bit of a history on that now. I've always tinkered around with it a little bit, nerded out on laying out different kind of concepts on the plan since I'm a civil engineer, and I've done civil engineering and land planning for a long time. But when we finally got serious about doing something last year, I met with Robin and a couple of the commission members to talk about the property itself, look at it from a 10,000-foot view and see what maybe would be done on the property. Robin, if you could put up the project overview slide, I'd appreciate it. Or Michelle.
Yeah.
So, looking at the slide that she's going to be putting up is from the 2018 Comprehensive Land Use Plan, which was adopted in 2018. And based on what you will see eventually, it's right before the zoning text. No, I wanted to look at no, it's not the plan. It's a separate submittal. It's item 2 of the 11 items that I submitted. There you go, right there, yeah. So that's a snapshot of the comprehensive land use plan that we looked at when we came in for that. Yeah, if you can enlarge the map and just kind of scroll up to it. First time?
No.
We do have a new IT system.
If you right click, it'll give you a hand. I wanted to show the map, sorry. Yeah, okay. So that's a snapshot out of the comprehensive land use plan. And as Robin said, that this property falls within sub-area 11 of the land use plan. So that's kind of what we looked at when we had that first initial meeting and said, all right, well, what does this property want to be? Well, the only real logical thing would be single-family residential. We didn't really talk about any other types of uses other than maybe a church or something, which I think we got plenty of those. So paragraph 11-3 of the official comprehensive plan states, and Robin alluded to this, the single-family infill remainder areas at 1 unit per acre without centralized sewer, or 2 units per acre with centralized sewer. So this is a classic example of infill remainder areas. It's exactly what this is. There's subdivisions east, north, and west of us that are all SFPRD. So I laid out a plan at that time, proposed 2 units per acre and 20% open space, just to start dialogue and see what it looked like. And what I immediately didn't like it because there's such a beautiful vista down on the north end of this with the Oak Creek running through it. I started looking at ways that we could do modifications to the layout and preserve more of that open space. That's where I dug deeper into the code and saw section 10.03C, which reads single-family cluster housing. I'm not going to read that, but basically what it says is the overall density is consistent with that provided in section 10.07, but modifications are permitted in lot size and shape to concentrate residential development in a portion of the overall tract and preserve other portions of the tract. So I kind of went with that and ran with it because I thought that was exactly what applies here at this property. And then 10.07A specifically talks about 2 units per the acre, which we're still under. So if you could show sheet 2 of the development plan, I'd go through kind of the details of the plan itself. So with that in mind, I reduced some of the lots closer to Orange Road by 5 feet in width and by 15 feet in depth. So I'm able to establish, by doing that, I was able to establish ultimately here 28% open space, which includes the preservation of Reserve E in its natural state. And I think I feel like that is the right thing to do with this property. So while the SFPRD code allows for cluster housing, which by definition is smaller clustered lots with homes closer together, it doesn't provide any direction or specific standards for those lots. And that's really the reason for divergences 1, 3, and 4. If the code had gone into more detail about what cluster means, then those would have been captured at that point. It's also important to mention that Robin said 6 or 7, but I think it's only 6 lots that are smaller than the minimum size. Lots 2 through 5, 9, and 10. So 6 out of the 21 lots are actually only smaller than the minimum requirements. So my initial submittal to zoning commission was 23 lots at 2 units to the acre with 25% open space. And after our first commission hearing and subsequent meetings with some of the neighbors, we resubmitted the revised plan, which is what we're looking at now. In this plan, I dropped 1 lot in the north section and made the lots wider along the north property line, and dropped 1 lot from the central portion of the site as well. I increased the open space from 25% to 28%, noting that 20% is the requirement. Increased the tree preservation zone at the rear of the property, so the green and spaces along the northeast and west sides of the north part of the property. I added privacy fencing and more landscaping along the property lines on the west and south for those immediate neighbors. I aligned the entry road with the school driveway. That was a request from the county engineer. I added a RRFB, one of the flashing lights, and a crosswalk that would go from this entrance across the street over to the schools for safety. And I shifted the main road in total 10 feet to the west slightly in an effort to accommodate my neighbors who I share the driveway with, their request to provide more room on the west side of the existing driveway for some trees.
10 feet.
I beg your pardon? 10 feet from my east property, yes. Other features of this proposal as submitted, committed to 4-sided architecture for all the homes. Cluster mailbox kiosk to be placed near the center, near the entrance. That would replace individual mailboxes, and that's a new requirement from the post office. Proposing an entrance feature that would match that of McCam and Chase, which I think is a really nice looking entrance feature, so we'd like to mimic that. And this property has public streets, 50-foot right-of-way width, and 26 feet of pavement with curb and gutter. And of course, all public utilities, including sewer, water, gas, and electric. So as Robin mentioned, regional planning recommended conditional approval in August, and zoning commission recommended 5-0 approval with no modifications in October of the plan that you're looking at. So I'd like to, I'm sure you're aware of a petition that's been circulating to deny this application, and I'd like to take this opportunity to just address those points point by point, so I think it's relevant. So this petition was circulated, best of my knowledge, beginning November 12th. And it starts with, we do not support the proposed development for one or more of the following reasons. Number one, a cluster housing development is not in keeping with the surrounding area SFPRD zoning districts, which are devoid of cluster housing. My response is, this is not a cluster housing project. In fact, as I posited before, only 6 of the lots are actually smaller than the required size. We're seeking divergences in size on 6 lots in order to preserve a greater open space along the creek. Now, I could argue that Cross Creek has a higher percentage of cluster lots because most of the lots in section 1 are smaller than your minimum requirements, and I got a copy of the plat here. I could show it to you. So the fact that the statement of devoid of cluster housing really is incorrect. Number 2 of the petition, if this development is approved, it will encourage similar developments in the area, possibly resulting in the demolition of existing homes. I'm not sure I even understand this comment because almost all of the land surrounding my property is already developed with the exact same zoning. And in fact, that's what encouraged my project, so it's kind of backwards. There's very little undeveloped land remaining. This just happens to be one of the parcels in this area. And it's not unusual to demolish older homes to make way for new development. Number 3 of the petition, the proposed development creates safety concerns both during and after construction as a result of the single access exit point located in a heavily traveled school zone and directly across from the entrance to Orange High School with a right-in, right-out driveway. My response is, during construction, a set of protocols set forth by the county engineer will be followed. There'll be a maintaining of traffic and safety plan, and this plan already includes additional safety measures like the RRFB and the crosswalk. We're also proposing sidewalk on, along the frontage of our property, which could be extended east and west if, if the neighbors of the township wanted to extend the sidewalk. But we don't have the authority to do that. Number 4, the proposed development will add to the traffic congestion issues that already exist on East Orange Road in the school zone and at the intersection of East Orange and South Old State. So this is not a zoning issue. However, a traffic analysis completed, the requirement of the county engineer revealed that the minimal traffic generated by this project does not trigger any turn lanes. Could you show the striping plan I submitted? It's probably way down at the bottom. With that being said, there's a traffic issue there. There's no question about it. We experience it every day. And as such, I prepared an exhibit which shows what could be done today on Orange Road to accommodate, that's not showing, to accommodate the existing traffic issues. They're certainly not created by my project because they exist today. But this would involve restriping the roadway, which is already wide enough pavement-wise to accommodate three lanes of traffic. And in this instance, you could create a center turn lane for buses turning into the school and for the residents who live on the north side of the road to turn into their driveways. So I think this would be a good plan to implement with or without my project. And I can discuss this a little bit more with you later if you want. I also would propose a reduction in speed limit to 35 miles an hour because I think between the roundabouts, I think it's not really appropriate there. But again, that's later discussion. Number 5, the proposed development will contribute to the overcrowding of Freedom Trail, Orange Middle, and Orange High School, and likely cause surrounding neighborhoods to be redistricted and pushed out of these schools in the future. Keep in mind the already approved community to the west of Orange Middle School. My response is this is not a zoning issue, but according to the formula that the schools use, Orange Cove could produce somewhere between 15 and 20 students that could potentially attend the schools. Now, these would be spread out over all grade levels, and the addition of this many students just certainly would not trigger a redistricting, not by itself. Number 6, the proposed development will negatively impact the environment with the removal of mature trees, in at least one known case over 300 years old, and destruction of habitats of wildlife, including bats, owls, foxes, and other. My response is, I hear my neighbors cutting trees down all the time, and I'm wondering, is this just apply to me, or would this be kind of across the board? It's not a zoning issue, and no rules are being violated. No rules are being violated by my plan. Number 7, the proposed development risks becoming another abandoned construction project like what we currently have at East Orange Road in Old State, or languishing development project like the ravines at McCammon Chase was for 5 years. My response is, I suppose any development runs this risk. However, I'm not in the business of starting a new project and stopping midway. We currently own the property, so there's no risk of defaulting on that, and we begin the project when conditions are right. That's just the right way to do it. Number 8, the proposed development is surrounded on all sides by 13 homeowners who have owned their homes an average of 14 years, predating Mr. Wicks by 5 years. I'm not sure what that means, but with absolute unanimity will be negatively impacted by this project. These homeowners also paid for premium lots to avoid development behind their property. I sympathize with folks who were maybe lied to by their builders that, this property was not going to be developed, but that they certainly didn't have the right to do that. We have the right, as the owner of the property, to develop. What we're trying to do here is be responsible and go above and beyond what the code allows to provide, a better development. So number 9 of the petition, in summary, a cluster housing development in this location does not promote the general welfare of the township or immediate vicinity. And my response is, as I stated before, this is not a cluster project, but cluster housing properties or characteristics are proposed on 6 lots in order to preserve a larger green space, which I think absolutely does promote the general welfare. And a final lot on the issue of cluster lots, not to belabor it, we're only asking for a reduction from 75 feet in width to 70 and 15 feet in depth from 135 to 120, which I pointed out. There are a lot of lots in this area that already have 120-foot depth. And they only apply to a small number of lots. But if the divergences are primarily And the divergences are primarily being requested because the code wasn't specific on what cluster lots sizes and dimensions would look like. But I do have a plan that works with 23 lots, and I can show it to you tonight, with no divergences, but the open space is reduced to 20.6%, and more trees would have to be cleared out because we'd have to relocate the pond to accommodate the larger lots. We'd have more lots on the north side and fewer lots on the south side. And I just don't think that's the right plan. That's why I proposed it this way. But if the divergences are a sticking point, I'm prepared to resubmit the original plan and come back through with 23 lots. I guess the fact that our proposal falls completely within the recommendations of the comp plan should make this approvable and appealing because we've reduced the lot count below what it could be, and we're providing open space well greater than that required. I'm sure you'd like me to be done, but wait, there's more. I rewatched the video of last zoning commission hearing, and I'd like to make some additional comments here tonight, commitments on, and change my application slightly. So I've got a list of additional commitments I'm willing to make. If you could put that drawing up, that'd be great. This plan is something I created today, and this includes the following. I added a 25-foot side tree preservation zone to lot 7, which is up against my neighbors to the west. So I made that a 25-foot tree preservation and no build zone. That's number one. Number two, I added a 25-foot rear tree preservation zone to the rear of lots 3, 4, 5, and 6, abutting my neighbor to the south, and also show that as a no build zone. 25 feet, correct? Yeah. I've got these in writing for you too. Number three, I increased the setbacks and tree preservation zones along the sides of lots 17, 18, and 21 on the north side. From my original proposal was 15 feet, I've increased those to 25 feet and show those as dedicated no build zones. And also I've added some trees that were pointed out. There are some areas that don't have trees right now, nothing to preserve, but we've added some trees to this plan to show that we would plant new trees there where trees don't exist. I want to modify my divergence number 2 request. The current request was to provide 7.5-foot side yard setbacks on all the lots. I've rewritten it, but the gist of what it says is I'd like to change the separation between the houses on lots 1 through 15. Separation from 15 feet is what was my original request, and make it 10 feet, 20 feet. So there'd be 10-foot setbacks instead of 7.5. On lots 16 through 21, all the lots in the back, just eliminate the divergence completely. We'll commit to 12.5 feet side yards and 25 feet between structures. And with this change in divergence, I'd like to permit a maximum of a 2-foot encroachment into those side yard setbacks for fireplaces, if a house wants to build a fireplace on the side of the home. And then finally, number 5, on lots 18 through 21, which are the lots that back up to Abbey Knoll, I'd like to add the following restriction that I'll commit to. And it reads, developers shall not clear trees on lots beyond what is required to install utilities, roads, stormwater management, and other infrastructure necessary to plat the buildable lots. Builders will be required to preserve as many healthy trees over 6-inch caliper as practicable on those lots. Any such trees over 6-inch caliper removed shall be replaced inch for inch by the builder in that lot's tree preservation zone. So what that means is if they take a 12-inch tree out, they can replace that within the tree preservation zone with 3 4-inch trees or 4 3-inch trees. But nonetheless, they're going to replace it inch for inch. And that concludes my presentation. And I do have all those things I just read to you. I have them in writing here if we wanted to bring it into the, ready for any questions you might have. 18 to 20. The 4 that are along the property line.
Initial question. You mentioned say so. Sorry. reiterate, go into greater detail on how you think you can address some of the concerns that they raised?
Yeah, happy to. We talked about this at the zoning commission level, but they, when they reviewed it, they admittedly didn't look at the cluster section of your code. And so all of their comments about reducing or increasing lot sizes were devoid of having that information. And they admitted that, but they wouldn't change their recommendation at the hearing because that's where I caught it. That's the first time I had heard of it. So if you include the permissible cluster housing, I think their requirements go away. I can't remember what they all were, but I think one of them was side yard setbacks, which I did just change to 10 feet, which is what they recommended. Yeah, and the rear yard setbacks have been an issue in the township. BZA hears probably a case every time they're in session for somebody wanting to encroach on the rear yard of 35 feet. I think your new code probably corrects that. And we're just kind of ahead of the curve here by requesting 25 feet instead of 35 feet. And I don't have their full recommendations in front of me. I apologize, Mike. If you have something specific, I'd be happy to answer it. Oh, sorry, okay. New drive location. So that kind of resolved itself by when I moved the entrance road to align with the school. We moved the road away from the existing driveway in that location. And since then, the county engineer looked at it and said, yeah, there's enough separation there. They don't have to move their driveway. And I did add on that drawing that I had you put up there, there's a note on there that says that the neighbor to the west will have unrestricted access into two locations, and those will have to be determined by them at some point. Minimum lot size, again, we talked about that, setbacks.
Can you speak to the?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, where you have encroachments being requested pretty much every month for pools and decks and that. So, I think your new code, Robin, you might be able to say maybe you can't, what your current code says that your rear yard setbacks are, but I'd be surprised if they weren't 25. Currently they are, but I'm talking about you're revising your code and. Okay. Yeah, so, and again, those were just recommendations to the zoning commission. The zoning commission took them into account and then recommended approval of the plan as is.
Well, I just want to say from the beginning that, the property develop their property in certain locations. And unfortunately, many times that does end up impacting their neighbors, but they do have a legal right to develop their property. And sometimes if you end up rejecting it for no reason that's applicable under a zoning resolution, the township could be sued. And then in the end, what you end up with is a much worse development than what you could have negotiated. So I think that's what we're trying to determine right now is the best way to accommodate his application reasonably and legally while getting as many benefits for the neighboring residents. So we haven't made up our minds, but it's just a process to get through that, and then we'll see what happens again. So did you, is the county engineer not required to access this property, like to egress?
So that's fire. Fire. Maybe a copy of the code that you have to have 2 entrances if there's more than 30. There's more than 30.
Sorry, not the county.
What is fire? I guess you can speak to it. Fire.
Just a letter of compliance from the county engineer as well in my zoning thing. Yeah.
That's good. Let's see. So technically, if you don't have to go through the rezoning property process, because this is FR1, you could actually build up to 11 homes on it, 1 per acre, without even coming from the township. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so is that right, Mark? Because it's FR1.
In terms of density, yes, there would need to be a variance for additional homes on one property.
Well, you have to have it.
We'd have to do lots, but
It could be, the lots could be split with that part, so, yes.
Okay, yeah, so technically you have the lot split and then he could develop the property with 1 acre lots, and that would be many fewer homes, but he could clear cut the entire property. He could take every tree down there, so I wanted to keep that in mind as well. That would be his legal and unfortunate right to do that. Let's see here. So in regards to the tree preservation zone, so I walked the property with you the other night. It's absolutely beautiful. I'd like to see as much of it preserved as possible. Would you be able to put that clear the no-build or the no-clear zone on the other two lots, 16 and 15,
16 and 17.
yeah. The other two lots on the
in the back of the lots? Well, so
side. So, yes.
It's already within the tree preservation, and we can't see what the depth.
yeah, so the reason I hesitate to say yes is because those two lots are going to be walkout lots and they'll need some room to be able to grade everything in the back. But they back up the area that's going to be naturally preserved.
Now, in your tree preservation area, you said it's going to be any healthy trees over 6 inch, however, will be replaced.
Would be replaced inch per inch, yeah.
So not 6 inch. 2, 3 inch.
Yeah.
Yes, if they take a 20-inch tree down, they don't have to plant a 20-inch tree. They'll plant a number of trees that'll equate to 20 inches. That's kind of a common standard.
You said the 5 inches? 6 inches is pretty good.
Well, sure. There's a lot more 5-inch trees than there are 6-inch trees on the property. I'm comfortable with it at 6 inches. In fact, the project I copied that note from, Dornock Estates, they had 10 inches on theirs as a minimum.
And we had, let's see. What about limiting the color schemes on the houses on the west? The more earth tone colors, like no white houses or no that would things that would blend in better with the woods, so the residents would be appearance wise look at something that's kind of sticking out more of a sore thumb that.
We do in the architectural guidelines have some restrictions on color schemes, but I don't disagree with you. I think down in that area, we could limit the color schemes to have no white homes, I guess, and maybe favor earth tones. I'm not sure how we would word that, but if you have some specific language, I'd be happy to look at it.
Even though I know there's some in the neighboring subdivision, they tend to kind of stick out.
Sure. No, I think that makes sense.
Would you commit to 16? 6.
Yeah, I would, sure. Earth tones, including maybe greens, grays, and I don't know, blues are on their way out maybe, but I don't like all the houses looking tan, like most of the subdivisions built in the 90s. It does look really outdated.
And so I recently had a situation like this behind my own house where they cut down a huge amount of forest. So I have unfortunate personal experience with this recently. And I noticed that a lot of times there are a lot of lights on in the woods. So I was going to ask if you could commit to those same homes that we just discussed, those 6 not having, we don't allow downlighting now, or we don't allow downlighting, but lights that could not be seen, like porch lights, anything from the rear on the west side or the south side would be so the residents could not see those lights at night, would not shine on the property. Like a shielded bulb would be all genuine downlighting, and no exposed bulbs, just to keep the down.
I'm completely fine with that, although the houses in the subdivision are all lower in elevation than the surrounding neighbors, so it'd probably be more of a problem the other way. In fact, since their houses are higher, any downlighting probably wouldn't be seen at all from them. But yeah, I'm fine with
Yeah, but
some language like that.
But
Yeah, we'll put a restriction, sure. Understood.
And let's see. And with the striping, with the third lane in the middle, who would you deal with? The county engineer, the township to implement that? Who would decide that?
It's a good question. There's been some discussions about Orange Road becoming a county road anyway, but currently it's a township road. I've talked about this conceptually with folks at the township and at the county. As far as who would bear the cost of it, it's not warranted by my project, so my project wouldn't bear the cost of it, but I think it's something that is needed now. So, and it's something that could be initiated right now, actually.
I spoke to that. The next time we resurface, he would be open to just going ahead and putting in that turn at that time. So that could be 5 years, but my understanding is the development's probably not going to be kicking off 4 to 5-ish years.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yes.
So it's not like we're going to change the striping without necessary resurfacing schedule but when we do resurface, yeah.
I did talk to Jeff Gordon at the schools today, and he said that they would support that, the removal of their right in, right out. Right.
So happening for that.
Well, my project doesn't require any improvements to Orange Road. It's something that really is justified now. It's not a problem being made by my project. So understood. I just put together an exhibit that showed what is the art of the doable. And could, if there was some support, I'd be happy to kind of spearhead that through the county. And I think maybe some funds are available at the county level. I gleaned that from discussions, but. Done.
And the 6 feet.
It's with curb and gutter, the county engineer's standard is 26 feet from the face of curb to face of curb with 24 feet of asphalt.
At some point, maybe once it gets to the here, so it's a little bit less wide, the 20 feet. I guess the fire department, 20 feet, just to the extent of the last 6 houses, just to cut down fewer trees. Like on the in the back.
So the county engineer's standard for a road with no curb and gutter is 20 feet of pavement with then ditches on either side of the road. You'll see that in a lot of the rural subdivisions around here.
So would you have to still take out trees for the ditches?
You'd still have to clear the right of way 50 feet. It could matter in that you have flexibility once the ditch is in, whether you go up or down to meet existing grade. So it could in fact reduce the amount of trees that needed to be taken. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
And when you purchased this property, you said nine years ago?
2014.
So were you aware of the land use plan at that time and what it said your property? Okay. So we looked back and we aren't sure when the land use plan actually implemented this to be this type of zoning, but it was.
It predates when we bought it.
Yeah.
There was no change yet.
I have a few more pictures.
So one of the questions I had, you just answered with your modified plan, is making sure that we've got the trees on the east and west sides of the property. I heard at the second zoning hearing meeting with Mr. Casiva, your neighbor to the east, talking about matching the street trees that are on the east side of his driveway that we currently share with trees that match. So that would be something I would just see you commit to that. So that's another thing.
Yeah, we would just need to The only caveat to that is the way the plan is, some of those trees might end up in the right of way, which I don't know that Orange Township has a problem with that.
So that busting up mirrors.
Yeah.
Cost of that. So that's the reason we have to, I guess homeowners, I don't have any trees in my street. So that's.
Yeah, so there's, the way this is developed with a 50-foot right-of-way and a 26-foot pavement, there's 11 and a half feet from the back of the curb to the right-of-way. That would be all grass. So if tree, no, that's the right-of-way. Oh, in this instance, no, we go another 10 feet beyond that. Yeah. No, because the driveway actually swings into my property partway. So to keep the trees the same equidistant off the west side as they are on the east side, some of those trees would potentially encroach into the right of way. And I don't have the survey done to know exactly how far, but if we were going to exactly mirror the trees that exist there now, that would be most likely what would happen. Maybe for a 200 to 300 foot stretch. 200 to 300 foot stretch of where the driveway dips down into my property more. Well, yeah, sort of. Yeah, I guess, and kind of opposite of where the intersection is on my subdivision. There is where the driveway kind of dips into our property further, and so their trees are 7, 8, 9 feet off of the east edge of their driveway. If we mirrored that off the west end of the driveway, they get into the right of way here a little bit. The result is you just have some street trees in the right of way, which there's no restriction in your code for that, but some townships do have that, like Berlin. So that's just the detail we'd have to work out.
Gotcha. So.
Unless you told me I can't put trees in the right of way. Yeah, and that's, again, it wouldn't be a divergence if there was a definition of cluster, because cluster homes by definition are smaller lots, bigger homes on smaller lots and closer together. So but the setbacks aren't talked about there. So we're basically talking about the same size houses that would go on larger lots are going to go on smaller lots, and that's pretty consistent. The yards will be smaller, there'll be more living space, you know.
Specifically on this small.
If I had to guess, I'd say probably in the 2,200 range with maybe the first floor footprint.
So. So that still be.
There's plenty of room for a house of that size. That's correct. They look giant, but they fit. All of them fit. So, 2 of them don't fit on the smaller lots, but they certainly fit on these lots that don't have divergences on them. So there's 6 lots that you wouldn't be able to build all the houses.
Still.
Yeah.
That's with the 32%.
Yes. Well, I didn't bring my phone in with me, so I don't have my calculator, but I think the smallest lots. Map real quick. 1,800 is the minimum finished floor size that I committed to. But the smallest lot is in the subdivision is 8,400 square feet. So 25% of that would be anyone, 27, 1,350, 42, 2,100 square feet.
Just the first floor.
Of the first floor footprint. Yeah, but I want to read again how that's divergence is reads. Okay, so the way the code reads it, 25% is specific to the house itself, not other living spaces, like no, it doesn't count the garage, but does not count like patios and things like that. So yeah, I guess the smallest lot could accommodate a footprint of 2,100 square feet and be 25%.
So timing wise, I'm just concerned about not having a designated time received for this. So what I read in the text was that this would be developed in 5 years, right? So you're committing to start the subject, not the homes, but getting the lots prepared for the homes within 5 years. So what that to me says, so and we've got 23, so through the end of 2028 for the properties to look possible like it does right now. So not having a change for, so we've got another chunk of time.
Yeah.
He's committed to starting within 5 years.
Yeah. Well, that's what you're asking. Yeah, again, we're not going to set ourselves up to fail. So we're going to, when the time's right, when the market turns around and when the demand is there and the builders are interested in building here, then we'll revisit it. But I don't see that happening for 2 years at least. No, not planning to, no.
And your first step in that would be to get a permit for this.
It's probably at least a year of permitting.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we'd have to do final engineering. Yeah.
Wait, could you notify the township in one way or another that you're planning to start so that we maybe want to
Or just be able to determine.
So if we would assume if they were to, but the applicant's going to apply for something, we would assume it's 12 months.
if this is the thing, keep one, all of a sudden the board.
I know when the plat gets circulated for review, the township, it triggers a notification to the township, but that's usually after the subdivision's built. So I'm not sure if there's another trigger that would trigger that, but I'm fine with keeping you guys posted on it. I'm just not sure how. I understand. As I stated throughout the process, we're doing this because the time feels right to get it zoned, but we're not in a hurry to build it. And we're not in a hurry to move out of Orange Township.
Just to speak to the community, I went to the Delaware County Housing Alliance presentation the Chamber of Commerce put in sometime in the last 6 weeks, and they talked about need for homes in Central Ohio. And one of the stats was because of the Honda battery plant, Intel, all of the things, right? They said there needs to be 1,170 units of housing brought on each year. So just as we're aware of, does there need to be more housing? Everybody that is doing the research, based on the activity in the state, the answer is what we're being told is yes.
That's total.
Total, yes. I mean, that's workforce housing, that's missing middle, that's, 300, 400, that's millions, all that.
But it don't have to be.
They do not have to be in order to.
Was that a Delaware County number?
That's
okay.
So reached out to the Tell Room show that I'm hoping we could bring some house in the community so our residents are aware of how that development is impacting. And the powers that be with Intel are stating that in Central Ohio, over the next 10 years, we need 100,000 new homes for people that are coming, whether it's Intel or other businesses that are supporting Intel or whatever it is. So those were just numbers that we are hearing from a local government perspective of housing that is needed.
So there's a letter in the
Sounds
heard.
Gotcha. Okay, do we have other questions? Yes, I'd like to public comment. Okay, so here's how public comment is going to work tonight. We're going to take turns coming up. When you come up, please state your name and address for the record. We have 3-minute time. You can see it on the screen only because we want to make sure that everybody can get heard and everybody's comments, like I said, are heard. So, and we as trustees and Mr. Wiggs as the applicant are not going to back and forth dialogue with you because we want you to get all of your comments out. We'll take notes. And when everybody has spoken, then we'll go back and ask questions. Now, please, if we restate your questions and we miss somebody, but miss something that you really need to hear about, let us know. We just want to keep us moving along in regards to everyone's time. Yes.
You say give name and address.
Yes, give your name and address.
Yeah, and then if you do have comments that someone else has already said, you're free to remake them, or you can sometimes just say, I agree with the other person that spoke. That's sometimes that's it, but not. You can use the time however you feel appropriate.
Okay. Ready, set, go.
Good evening, Hossein Kari, 2929 East Orange Road, the immediate neighbor actually to the property, the development. So imagine living in your house and living your life, being in your house and getting a letter that is going to say that there's going to be a development next to you. And not only it's going to cause a lot of problem, but it is also going to be a cluster housing, and you are going to be right in the middle of the cluster properties or cluster section of the property. And you don't have any stakes in this project, but you're going to be right in the middle of the cluster. I don't know why that should be approved, and I don't know why I should stand here to actually ask for the minimum requirements per code, while the zoning commission actually is not saying anything and says it is good. And we are going to be sued if we actually hold up the code. I don't know why that is also mentioned, but there is no basis. The code, it clearly says that based on the welfare of the neighborhood and the neighbors, immediate neighbors, any project is going to be reviewed and approved. I don't know why there should be any basis that, for example, I will support the lawyer if there was any case, for example, if we don't approve this case. If there was any court, I will help with actually supporting the lawyer or the legal backup. The other part was, I think it was mentioned that there is a little, I don't know, there is a little change again in this new one. There is a green area right immediate to my property. I'm not sure what that is. Is that a permanent green area that is kept by the neighborhood? Is this part of the HOA? Because there is supposedly some fences and some green area. But I don't know who is going to maintain that. If it is going to be in a personal property, they can totally demolish it, and I don't know who is going to maintain that part. If we consider those areas inside a common area and not part of the property, these are going to be significantly smaller lots now. Now they are not only not just 120, it's going to be a lot less than that. So, and then the other part that I wanted to mention was the it was a little selective about the cluster housing. Even if we say the cluster housing is approved in the cluster housing section that I think Mr. Wick didn't cover, possibly intentionally, if you bring that up, please, it actually says that there are two parts. It says the density must be kept. The density requirements of the code must be met, even regardless of whatever changes you make in the sizes of the lots or the dimensions or the shapes. And the density is covered in one section that has the intensity of use. There are two requirements in that code. And that is literally why I say there is no basis for any legal action. Because in the code, it says that you have to keep some balance. It says only 3 lots in every acre. And I don't think this is following that code. And that is I don't know how you can actually follow that. So, no, I can't continue, but I guess I leave maybe later. I don't know if it is allowed, I can. Okay, I will show you.
But we just want to hear from everybody else first, and then if there's not enough people, we'll come back. Is there anyone else that want to speak?
So I'm the Lorax and I speak for the trees. My son told me to say that. My name is Melissa Famia. I live at 3210 Abbey Knoll Drive. I'm not very good at the public speaking thing, so excuse me for being a little shaky. I understand completely that you cannot stop a landowner from developing land as long as they follow the current zoning codes. I get it. Don't like it, but I get it. I also know that there is no legal reason for you to change the current code, none at all, unless it benefits the community, the township, or current residents. It doesn't benefit the township as you're going to incur the expense of new township roads, possibly the expense of the restriping. You commented on that earlier. I wasn't aware of that coming in, so sorry. And also changing current traffic patterns. So, you know, the whole thing with the high school, who's going to pay for the in, out, there's a lot of question marks. And I just don't see the reason for I don't see the benefit to change the current code. So that being said, there's also the surrounding community benefits. Every new house that comes in costs Olentangy local school districts approximately $6,000 per new house. That's a problem for the community. And I know we need new houses, you've said that, and it's going to happen, but it doesn't have to happen where there's such a big environmental impact. And then as far for community members, I mean, read the room. You got the petition. Some of it, like he said, wasn't, you know, something we could argue on. But the fact is we love that land. We think it's beautiful. We want to maintain it and preserve it. It's currently zoned FR1. So I would love to see you hold to that zoning of FR1 because there's no reason to change it. It's not to the benefit of our community, our trustees, our township. There's no benefit other than, I get it, you want to line your pockets. That's the only benefit. So I'm asking you as elected trustees to please maintain the zoning code as it is. There's no reason to change it. And if we're not going to maintain and enforce the current codes, why do we have zoning codes? They're there for a reason, so please consider that. That's all I have.
Good evening, Carl Von Vels here, 6840 Castleberry Mills Court. Thanks for having us this evening. I want to illustrate the reasons about why we're opposing this previous picture. That's number 2. You can go to number 1. So the reason for the opposition to this is not that he's developing the land, it's how he's doing it and where he's doing it. So I want to show you something there. Could you hide that timer for just a few seconds? What I want to show you here, what we're looking at is this is from Old State Road on the west. Old State Road is just barely out of view on the west side, to Vale Canyon on the east side, and Orange Road on the south. And what we're looking at there is a continuous wooded greenway that spans that entire distance between those two roads, with 2 minor interruptions. It's interrupted slightly by Rose Park Boulevard there on the west end and by Abbey Knoll through McCam and Chase on the east. The deer still managed to use that throughway even in spite of that, but for the most part it's a continuous wooded greenway. And the reason I point that out is I went back and looked at one of the previous land use plans, the 2010 land use plan, and there's a specific clause in there about, in the natural resources section of the plan that says it's a goal to retain wildlife corridors and cover where feasible, and to do that by retaining wooded greenways along ravines, waterways, and project perimeters. That's exactly what that is. Now, that was removed from the 2018 land use plan, unfortunately. I know that Ms. Knapp was one of the trustees when that plan was approved, and I'd love to know why that was taken from there. We'll save that for another time. But at any rate, what is in the current zoning code is to conserve and protect natural resources and scenic areas. So with regards to that wooded greenway, can you go to the second picture, please? So that's what it looks like before, that's what it looks like right now. That's what it will look like if this Orange Cove development goes in. So it's going to cut that whole entire wooded greenway in half. That's going to be a significant interruption to that. It's going to have, huge swath of trees that will need to be removed for this development project. So it cuts that in half. So there's obvious damage to the natural resource. And as far as we've already talked about the, incidentally, I'm one of the 13 homeowners, my wife and I are, that abut the property. So, I get it that as trustees making this decision, you can't legally consider the disruption to our backyards for this, but we can. I mean, this is going to profoundly degrade our property values and our privacy if this goes in. And I've talked to all of the 13 homeowners that abut the property, and there's not a single one of us that is in favor of this project, not a one. Okay, the next point I would like to make with the next picture is I want to talk about ravines. So ravines are a rather unique topographic feature of this area, of the township and of the county. And in fact, that is recognized in the current land use plan. There are multiple references in the land use plan to protecting and preserving ravines. So this picture right here actually shows where the ravines are. Just for reference, where the purple contour lines are clustered, that's where the ravines are. That's a high amount of vertical elevation gain in a short horizontal distance. So that's where the ravines are. In fact, what you can see from this is that wooded greenway that was more visible in the previous shot, that entire thing is really wooded cover for this ravine, the entire length from the west end to the east end. And in fact, one of the steepest ravines, you can see right there in the middle of the picture, one of the steepest ravines in the area goes right through this proposed Orange Cove development lot. So my question to the trustees is, if we approve this development and all this construction going on right in the middle of that ravine or right on top of that ravine, does that constitute preserving and protecting the ravine? That's something I would like to know. Also, one more point to make from this. Half of the Orange Cove development would actually be down in the ravine. The north half of it would be in the ravine. There are no other homes in that ravine right now. This would be the first. You look at McCammon Chase on the east side of Abbey Knoll Road there, and you see that McCammon Chase is actually built around the ravine, but the houses are built up to the edge of it. The land in the middle, the bottom of the ravine is actually reserve property that belongs to the homeowner association. There are no homes down there. So currently there are no homes in the ravine until Orange Cove goes in. And again, this has been said, but I want to reiterate it because it's worth saying. Obviously, Mr. Wicks has a right to develop his property. That's a natural right. I'm all in favor of that. Natural God-given right, but just to point out the obvious, that natural right does not automatically confer the right to rezone the property. So there's more to be discussed there. So I would echo that request that you please consider keeping the property zoned where it is. One of the things that was mentioned in the development plan is the reason for the divergences is for greater flexibility, quote unquote, in house design, property utilization, and outdoor living spaces. What it doesn't mention is one of the purposes to maximize the housing density. But I would suggest that if greater flexibility is really what he's after, if he were to develop the property in accordance with the current existing zoning district of farm residential, he'd have a ton of flexibility. So, and more to the point, if he were developing in accordance with farm residential district, we wouldn't be having this discussion because this would be way less of a headache and a disruption to the surrounding neighbors. So we have, by the numbers on that petition, last I checked, there are over 570 people total who have signed that opposing this project. So I would ask that you consider that as a pretty solid indication that this does not advance the general welfare of the township and especially the immediate vicinity. Thank you.
Thanks for letting everyone have a turn to speak. Kelly Shively, 2841 East Orange Road. I've been an Orange Township resident almost 22 years. That means I moved in when there were 2 high schools. So I have supported every development in Orange Township until this one. And I'm really sorry to hear that you're concerned about being sued. That's unsettling to me ethically. I live in the school zone. I want to talk about the school zone. All the other developments I've supported, the infrastructure has been ready for that development. We all admit this infrastructure is not ready. We do have a traffic problem. Even Mr. Wicks admits there's a traffic problem. I live in the school zone, and if we pull out of Orange Township right now and we enter the school zone, we're going to hit 2591 East Orange Road, single family. Then we're going to hit the middle school roundabout and the entrance to Cross Creek. Cross Creek has 5 entrances and exits, and it's on a roundabout. Then we come to 2711, single family home. 2739, single family home. 2789, single family home. 2841, where I live, single family home. 2865, single family home. 2883, single family home. 2829, single family home. 2840, that's the high school, no roundabout, no infrastructure, no money for this development to fix that. The proposed new development, and then 2975, single family home. Every single piece of land in the school zone right now is single family home. And it's already a huge traffic and safety issue. When I pull out of my driveway in the morning, while those lights are on and people are driving slow, I have to turn on my hazards, honk my horn, and wave to people so I can get someone to stop and let me out of my driveway. I'm taking my life in my own hands every time I pull out my driveway when those schools are backed up. My neighbor has her child walkie-talkie her when they want to cross the street so they don't get hit. The infrastructure is not set up and prepared for this development. Everyone has a right to develop their property, but keep it FR1. Keep it FR1. Why are we going for the minimum? Why are we allowing variances? Why are we changing our zoning? Why are we just lowering our standards in Orange Township? When asked at the first zoning hearing, if you were going to live in one of these homes, Mr. Wicks, do you remember what you said?
I said it's not relevant.
Yeah, it's not. It is relevant to me. It's very relevant to me. We are going to be left with the consequences of this, and it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant is not going to be living there anymore. Thank you.
I'm Gary Kasiba, 2975 East Orange Road. My wife Betty and I live in the adjoining property, and you talked about the driveway. I appreciate the comment about the driveway, and I just wanted to reinforce I don't hear very well. So if I understood, we're going to have, can we go back to the other picture? Can we, so we see it?
Probably the site plan. The development.
The development picture. I just wanted to confirm that that green strip, half of that green strip along our driveway runs under our driveway. I don't know if you were aware of that or not. So it's under that. I just wanted to confirm that we're going to mirror the trees on the other side to the ones on our side, right? That's my understanding.
That's still the commitment.
Good. I just want to make sure that I understood that correctly. I want to also support the previous comments about adherence to the zoning code and strongly opposed to all of the divergences that we're talking about. I don't know if it's cluster housing or not, but we're asking for a lot of variances that seem inappropriate for the development that we're talking about here. I wanted to use my time, though, to talk about something that hasn't been mentioned. And that's in the back, in the green zone there. There's a diversion of the creek that runs into our property. That the culvert that runs across there involves a diversion. And it looks pretty simple there when you look at it, but there are some repercussions of that affect our property quite a bit, in that it gives a straighter shot for the water coming across. And in order to put that in, you have to cut down a significant number of trees. There's a bunch of trees right in front of that between the two retention ponds would have to come out. If you look at the retention ponds and the diversion of the creek, it would be more than 30 trees that would have to be removed. And that creates some erosion problems that we have that erodes the bank. When each of the turn that you make in the creek, you get these things, and we directly experience that. We experienced it when the Abbey Knoll development was put in. That seemed pretty innocuous. It was way removed, and we experienced some major erosion that occurred when that was put in, just from stripping the hillside of the ravine, the trees off of that. And we ended up with a trench probably 3 foot by 4 foot or so, all the way to our creek running through the property. And I had the soil and water conservation people actually look at it, and they said, well, it's too late to do anything now about that, but we have a chance here to avoid some of that by not stripping those trees out of the green area that we have here, and not diverting the stream direction. In the last comment I have, if I understood, you were talking about a trading inch for inch trees and the tree preservation zone. Is that inch in diameter? Was the inch in an inch, 1 inch trees doesn't equal one 10-inch tree. It's pi r squared. Thank you very much.
I'm Nazman Shoykot, that's 6823 Castleberry Mills Court. Now, this plan looks nice. There's a lot of preservation areas. But one thing that you don't see on the plan is a lot of that preservation area, Gary talked about his side, you're gonna have to cut stuff down, there's no choice. And on our side, on the north side, I believe that's where all the utility sewer lines, those massive things are coming through. So you see a preservation area there, but it's not real, because if they're bringing these massive sewer lines from the north side, we've got huge trees there, 60 foot. That's, some of them are even in my property on the north. And basically they're gonna have to cut stuff not only in there, but also in our properties, because how are you gonna bring it there? Right? Because the sewer line isn't actually bordering that property. It starts in my backyard and and then he'd have to bring it over there. So that would be, massive ecological destruction. And, you're going to lose, a lot of pathways for the animals, like everyone mentioned, and no one else has ever built in this ravine, like Carl mentioned. And I don't think it actually adheres to the existing area at all, because no one else has built in the ravines. If you look on both sides, they're primarily FR1. They're FR1. If you look on the west side, or, the east side where Gary lives, it's all FR1, and it's probably 80% FR1 on the other side, on the west side. So you're basically destroying nature, destroying ravines, and for what? I don't know. Or just, we can build houses. There's a lot of flat land all over Orange Township, You can acquire that, people pay a premium for trees, whatever, but when they're acquiring land or not, but there's a ton. If you look at that map, I see flat green land all throughout Orange Township. No ravines, no old growth trees. You know, this is a better central park than basically a subdivision. So I think this would do a lot of harm to, you know, our neighborhood and, you know, the immediate vicinity. We live there. We live there. We can see what's there, you know, and those are my primary. Yeah, that's the reason we're opposed. You know, me and my family are opposed. Most of my neighbors are opposed. I'd like to keep it FR1.
Yes.
Hi, my name's Hillary Houston. My husband, Ryan Houston, live at 2789 East Orange Road. Just wanted to touch on a couple of things. First of all, I really appreciate the trustees' willingness to dig into it and try to find some middle ground, really do. One comment with regard to the current zoning on the 1 house, 1 acre current zoning allowances. Yeah, technically you could, you know, rip down all the trees, but we all know that's not going to happen. Wooded lots are a lot more expensive and worth more than non-wooded lots. One comment on the ravines. I back up to the ravine. I know that it's what my husband and I had to jump through, the hoops we had to jump through in order to connect to the public sewer. We couldn't touch the ravine, couldn't touch it. We had to bore underneath it. We spent a lot of additional fees, legal fees, engineering fees in order not to touch the ravine. I guess maybe that was before it was changed in 2018, but we weren't allowed to touch it. My biggest concern living on Orange Road, and I know I spoke to Mr. Ricks about this, and I do appreciate the effort to address what I call safety concerns. They're traffic, but it's safety concerns on Orange Road. I have 2 children that walk to Orange High School and Orange Middle. Technically, they could ride the bus. Seems kind of silly. We don't make them ride the bus. They do cross, and it is dangerous. And while the development hasn't caused that problem, no one can deny it won't add to it. So there's real safety concerns there. I completely sympathize with Kelly Shively. I'm in the same boat. Pulling out of my driveway in a school zone, it's dangerous, not just for me, but for the kids. And I hold my breath every time with my kids and other kids, because there's the walking trail there as well. With regard to redistricting, yes, again, this wouldn't trigger the redistricting, but it certainly would be taken into consideration. And we know Olentangy redistricts all the time. And 15 could certainly push out McCam and Chase. That's repeatedly over the last several years, which I lived in previously, and it was redistricted more times than I can count. Demolition of existing homes. Mr. Ricks is planning to demolish his home, at least that's what the plan currently calls for. The concern there is, yes, there's no other place for development technically, but the neighbors' homes would be, I would think, be very valuable for future development then, if you're willing to tear down homes. And so why this development doesn't abut my property now, maybe in 5 or 10 years it will. There'll be not just 21 homes, but there'll be 50 homes or 60 homes. Another concern I have is just the prolonged development and the potential risk for abandoned developments. We see that at the corner of Old State and Orange. Have no idea what's going on there. I would speculate rumor mill, but nonetheless, it's been sitting vacant for quite some time. And I was in McCam and Chase when the market went south and homes sat vacant or half built for years and years and years. It became a real safety issue. Just one additional comment. I agree, housing is needed. No one's going to say that it's not. I don't think it's needed in a school zone in Orange Township. There is plenty of development. I see it every day driving up between Orange Road and up to Delaware. There's probably those, I don't know, 100,000 homes. I don't know what, my guess in the next 5 years, there may be 100,000 homes in that area alone. So I would just ask that the trustees take that into consideration, I don't think we'd be here, to Carl's point, or one of my neighbor's points. If this was 11 new houses on 11 acres, we wouldn't be here. Thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Yes, I can follow it up. Sure. So in general, I wanted to say I'm not against development, as was mentioned. It is their right. They want to develop. It should be as is, like they can develop, but it should be responsible development. And we want to build something that we are proud of. Everybody, the neighbors and even the developer and future residents are proud of it. The current application mentions that it is a premier development SFPRD. I don't think any cluster terminology within premier doesn't work at all. And you mentioned also like new residents have to come into, like you mentioned Intel. I don't think any of those people are gonna live in cluster housing too. They are making $150,000. I think that's the average salary. I don't think they're gonna live in something that is subpar and less than a standard even. There is no reason for developing this in this way. I'm not saying don't develop this area, develop it more responsibly. Move some lots around and make them bigger, and like I think everybody is gonna be happy. No problem is gonna be there. And one other thing, I think like Mr. Wicks keeps mentioning that I have a plan from the beginning, I think the first meeting, and even when we talk to each other, I have a plan with 23 lots. I'm gonna raise the numbers up to 23, and I'm gonna have no divergence. I mean, I have kept hearing that. I mean, like, please submit. Let's us see this, and actually, let's review. We will review, and if it is okay, we will approve it. Why not? But I don't know why we keep hearing that threat, kind of like from Mr. Wicks, and we haven't seen anything like that yet. So just that, I really insist that please do not approve any of these diversions. The cluster housing concept is not a guaranteed concept even in the code. It says it can be done. It doesn't say anything. This development is so small that it is like on the sides, it is all like close to the neighbors. Maybe that is something that is good for like a bigger development, that maybe for the internal part, they can actually have some kind of a cluster housing, but it can't be all wrapped around one of the neighbors and like they are all towering over our residents. I really don't see why there should be like cluster housing with less than even the standard setbacks. I think the lot number 1 setback is like 15 feet really to our, like the house is 15 feet away from the fence. Is that correct? I don't know. I think that is what it said in the development plan. So I don't know. I really insist you guys to like hold the standards, and even like more than the standard. Do not recuse yourself from this like responsibility, just saying, oh, because they are gonna like sue us or there's gonna be legal action. I think it all falls on you. You have to support all the residents and like to make something that is everybody proud of. I mean, just look at it, like that lot number 8. How is that even like a premier development? That is like a awkward looking, I don't know what that is. So just want to say this is really being like approved irresponsibly. I don't know, nobody is even looking at it. Like I think like everybody just, oh, okay, it looks, it has a lot of green areas, it looks good. It's not detailed, it is not actually like lot number 1. I don't even know how that house is facing. Is it facing south or is it facing towards the street? What is the depth of that? What is the width of that? The depth is usually measured from the street to the back of the house. So in this case, it's gonna be like 109 feet. It's not even 120. I don't really understand like how this is getting approved without anybody actually complaining at any of these issues that we are seeing. I just spent a little of time and I found so many issues with this. I don't know, like I hope you guys, I wish the commission, the zoning commission did a better job. They really just approved it. It was like a complete surprise. But I hope you guys can actually stop it at this point and actually ask for a resubmission, a more responsible plan for this one. Appreciate your time and thank you.
I'm gonna read right here. Oh, sorry.
I live at 2975 East Orange Road. We share the driveway. I want to, Betty Kosiba. I want you to consider the safety of the kids. We have been at our residence since 1977. And our kids were through one high school, obviously, the Orantangy. And we've seen the growth, and I think what you've done with the roundabouts and the area and the pullouts and the turn-ins have been great. Whoever designed and worked with that, that was really, really, and it works well. Now, if you put we don't know that a turn lane is going to come. We've been told a lot of things since we've moved here, overpasses over the roads, overpasses over the railroad tracks. Nothing ever happens. So the promise to me really does matter. But we don't have any sidewalks on the north side. All the way down, no sidewalks. So if the kids are going to cross, if you look at the picture, well, it's not on this, but the pull-off for the people pulling into school, you can pull in there. They're going to be crossing with the 2 lanes of heavy traffic and that pull-in area. And what if the person doesn't see when the pull-in area goes? You may not see that in cars. And it's not just going to be morning and night. It's going to be kids going to practices. If you have young kids, they're going to have to cross to go down, to come back, to get down to school because school is down at the bottom of the hill. And so the sidewalk is on the north side when you from Vail Canyon up to the first roundabout, and then you turn and go. So I just want you to think of the safety of the kids. I know I don't have any young kids. Maybe it's the grandma in me, but I do think that there's a lot with the young kids. The traffic is so heavy. It's just like everybody else said. You can't get across that road. And I know there's a lot of small fixes. You get across, you have to walk up with the traffic in the pull-up because there's no sidewalk going up to the high school. So when the kids cross, they're going to walk up, with the traffic. So you really will have to, quick fix. We've gone over at night to football games, soccer games. It's dark when you come back. There's no lights down there. I know, another quick fix. Put lights up. It's all out of quick fixes. But we've been here a long time, and a lot of the quick fixes don't happen. And it all sounds good when you're standing up here. But just kind of think to the future a little bit, not just the present and what's good right now. Think of those kids, because when something happens to one of those kids, you can't bring them back and you can't help the family. So consider how dangerous that area really is. Thank you and appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. Brian Owens, 3120 Ebony Knoll Drive. I've been in banking for a long time, and I know they bought a property, the Wicks did, off Old State. I think it was September of 2001, the build and develop, and they're delinquent on their taxes on that. And so what's going to happen if this gets rezoned to residential, waits 5 years, how are the tax implications going to be felt with the community? If they're not paying the taxes, something they bought 2 years ago, what's going to happen now? So that's my question. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you all for your public comment. That was preparing your research, preparing it, being willing to come to speak to us. We'll all chime in the different questions that we heard or address Mr. Wicks ones that we can address to that. Start with Hussein's first question that I had, or that he had. Mr. Wicks, who will maintain the preservation areas, like the ones that we've added on the sides? How do we make sure the person who buys that lot, keeps those trees versus chopping them down?
Well, they're going to be platted as no-build zones and preservation zones. So the HOA would govern that. But they are actually on the individual's lots. That's not uncommon. The HOA would govern the, the ongoing maintenance of any properties on individual lots that's governed by a deed restriction. And those would be deed restricted. The individual, but it's policed by an HOA. Just like they can police somebody putting a trailer in their driveway.
Does that's who maintains?
Fence as proposed would be on the development property, so yeah, it would be the same thing. By the property owner, by the lot of them.
If something down, sometimes you could approve zoning or to take the fence down.
Like, as I mentioned, it's on the development plan. It will be in, those spaces will be defined on the plat and what you can and cannot do within the spaces. One is going to be maintaining the landscaping and the fences as designed.
Did fence came to that from conversations with the neighbors?
It was a solution that I offered when they were concerned about, the lots appearing to be too close.
Do they like the fence or do we not? Those, I specifically, people who live next. Do we have a fence?
But definitely the plan,
I don't think privacy fences are meant for like us to go stand right next to and look over. See.
Story houses.
Right. But for, you would see people like your back. Okay.
And so real quick, from our property line, where, I should say from our driveway house, where the property line, we're actually down, it's maybe 10 foot elevation, if there were a fence there, we'd be right over it.
I don't think there's a fence in the section. I think it's definitely stuff. Okay, so I'm going to speak real quick to the cluster code and kind of rephrase it in non-zoning speak, because I'm learning to speak zoning, but I'm learning. So what this, and I'll read the code and then I'll read what it means to me. For purposes of the section, cluster housing shall mean residential development where the overall density is consistent with that provided in section 10.07, which is the 2 units per acre. So that means over the entire development, the entire 11.5-ish acres, you're allowed to have the original 23 homes. So that's the density. We do density, right, for the whole thing, not buildable, not anything like that. So you're allowed to have 2 units per acre across the whole thing, even if you crammed all of those 23 homes into 5, not counting setbacks, into 5 acres. You're allowed to have still 23 homes on the entire site. Okay. For a single family planned residential district, the modifications are permitted in the lot size and shape to concentrate residential development in a portion of the overall tract, thereby maintaining the remainder of the tract as a permanent common space. So you are allowed to have 23 homes on this 11.5 acres and have some of the homes closer together, which kind of negates that side and rear and even front setback.
I can. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
So the density, you're correct, is 2 small units per acre, and they can build 23 acres. However, there is a section on section 10.07 maximum units on any single acre. So that's the three units per acre. So it does limit to an extent. So you can cluster, but there is limitations to how many units per acre. So I guess they could do, 8 acres, they could do all the units at once.
Thank you for clearing that up. Sure. So, what is the greatest density? Because I've seen other proposals come through where they give us like a grid. Here is 2 units per acre, 6 units per acre, just because they kind of, there's a corner of this one and a whole of this one and a corner of that one. What is the greatest?
Back up just a second. So I'm not sure where that 3 units per any single acre comes in, but your current code without any divergences doesn't meet that. If a single acre is 43,560 square feet, and your minimum lots are 10,125 square feet. So you can fit 4 non-divergent lots, two non-divergent lots on any single acre, and that this code, part of the code would be violated everywhere, even this lot here on that this plat of Cross Creek. It's just, I'm not sure where it came from. It seems really ambiguous. With that being said, I didn't do the math, but I think we'd be closer to 5 on any single acre. No, that's correct. And there was a recent zoning that got approved where they were putting 8 on any single acre, and it was also SFPRD. So it's not unusual. That's just a kind of a strange caveat in the code that I don't think is applicable.
Mr. Wicks, you mentioned that you have a 23 plan that you would like to share it with us. Are you prepared to do that now?
I have it here with me, yeah.
Okay, could you provide it?
Yeah, the real difference. You can see you could be live. So, yeah.
So what we're seeing there is along number 17 and 18, or 16 and 17 are currently added. There's an additional one there. That tree preservation area in the center is significantly skinnier. It's just so that means you'd have to remove trees in the center to be able to. Did we show it? Pass that around. We're going to see if the garage was anyways. Big over.
To all of you?
Yeah. How many copies?
I don't want to make it part of the public record because this isn't what I'm proposing.
Okay, so it's. I did a little bit of research on other areas in Orange Township and what their setbacks and stuff were. So I looked at the front of Cross Creek, which is part close to Orange Road. Those homes are 120 feet wide from their property. Now they do back up to FR1 properties, so you can't tell that you have 120 feet of property they do own, but technically they do. So everybody's coming out of Cross Creek, right there by that roundabout that is. Then I also looked in Oak Creek subdivision, and the ones that I had measured were 70 foot by 123 foot deep. So that is also pretty similar to what we're asking, what he is asking for this. The subdivisions in Orange, just off of a spreadsheet that the zoning department just put together that all have a 25 foot. 5 foot rear setback, which is what we're asking, right? Village of Elm Creek, Park Shore, Hills of Highland Lakes, Hidden Springs, Orange Village Center, Oak Creek 1, Homewood Corporation, Crystal Valley, Willow Springs, Waverly Place, Fox Ridge, the Boar Corporation, Shores Mullins Tract, Shores PRD, and Granite Estates. I can't speak with knowledge about where all these developments are, what they look like, and it could be that there's like this one, some of the homes have these smaller setbacks, but more of them don't. So just so we're kind of aware of what has been approved previously. John, let's see. Carl, I liked your comment about protecting and preserving the ravine, just reminding us that that's in the land plan. So thank you for that.
I would like to address that if I can.
Yep.
So what he pointed out on the drawing as being the ravine isn't what the ravine is. It's wooded area, but it's not the ravine. the ravine, and we are protecting the ravine. That's why we have the green space here. The lot, you can laugh if you want, but lots 18, 19, 20, and 21 actually are going to be sitting more than 20 feet above the bottom of the creek. That's not in the ravine. So it
John, just a correct me if I'm wrong, but no agency would let you build if you were impacting a protected ravine, correct?
Of course. Yeah. Of course they would not.
What are environmental agencies? So
They will, that would be after zoning, correct?
Yeah, we have to get a Corps of Engineers permit to go across the creek, which I've already done once, which is how I have the culverts there now. So we'd basically be taking out the existing culvert and replacing it with a box culvert.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can speak to, and maybe this is not at this stage, but Mr. Siba talked about the 30 trees being removed to put the ponds in and road concerns and that.
I'm not sure. Well, I think so he was talking about a diversion of the creek. Yeah, so in that area, and you can, if you can go to my site plan and zoom in, sheet 2 of the development plan. Yeah. And yeah, if you can just go to where that culvert is. So the creek it meanders, obviously. And so when you're intercepting it and passing water through, you don't put a meandering culvert, you do a straight line. And so that's the diversion he's talking about.
So
Correct. Yeah, we'll straighten it. Yeah, that's not out of the ordinary for any roadway crossing. The creek at the property line won't be moved. Now, whether or not it's going to pass water through more quickly, I guess I don't know. We'll be doing a detailed hydraulic and hydrology study for that when it's designed. But the governing criteria for stormwater control is not to impact the downstream property owner, and we'd have to adhere to that.
let's us finish our questions and then come back. I wanted to make some questions about the development at the corner of South Old State and Ridge Road, which is the Horseshoe development that was approved a couple of years ago. So I reached out to the people that has sat for a while. I agree, it's an eyesore. So what I was told, and I spoke to the developer again this morning, that project has restarted and they're in the process of surveying, and it's supposed to be done with the sanitary sewer work at the end of this month. So a couple weeks. That's what they have told me. So we should be seeing some movement on that. As some of you may have heard, there's been some contractor changes through time. But my understanding is they have contracts we should be seeing work happening. So just so we're, that's hopefully moving in a direction. Robin, do you know the setbacks, lot sizes in Evans? As far as, I know it's a specifically mentioned.
No, that's not my head.
Are you asking the side setbacks?
These are so long.
Evans Farm does have one of the smallest setbacks. I believe it's 6.
Yeah. But do we know what the lot length is? Like, is it still 75?
Some of them are 40 feet, 42 feet.
Yeah, they do have 40-foot lots there.
So that is something that has been built. People seem to be purchasing. Now it's a different.
Yeah, I just think have a problem.
Kind of use, you know.
And that's certainly considered an elite or premier development where people are buying lots smaller than these.
So Steve's property and all of the small property or the small properties are all finished out in the main road being potentially built for the same single family.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
So do you know why in 2018 that the language was removed from the land use plan talking about the wildlife corridor? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, probably from the EPA. Captain.
I cannot, I was here for during the land use plan in 2018. I know there is an environmental section in the code, so I think maybe our thought process is just to consolidate it. And those recommendations are within there, but it does not specify it for a property like, to his point, it did in 2010.
But still working.
I believe there's an environmental section in there, just to protect natural resources, but
I think that language is still in there. It's in a different section.
yeah, it's just not specified for use.
Yeah, because we published this plan, the public review, got comments.
Yes, it's about a 6 to 12 month process.
Yeah.
We had several engagements.
So I think we they've got something listed. Yeah.
Correct.
Mr. Casiva also asked about the tree radius versus diameter. Can I just expound on that?
Well, they're measured in diameter. So the diameter at breast height is how you measure a tree. So then chest height, if it's a 6-inch diameter, you would replace it with 6 inches of diameter of new trees, a combination of smaller trees. Oh, I'm not a botanist. I would say normally new trees come in at 4 to 6 to 7 feet, generally.
But it's basically the area.
Yeah, the areas aren't going to be comparable, but it's not measured on area. It's measured on diameter. Yeah, that's a common practice. You can research that on a number of other townships.
So the original zone and the entire property, even the subdivisions around it were all woods. And then I know we had some zonings and residents came and they were upset because all those woods were being taken down, unfortunately. So in a way, it's like there was not very few people here, and then the land was changed and zoned, and all those trees got cut down. So actually, at the time. So just to keep in mind that whenever everyone's subdivision is built, it involves kind of the same travesty of destroying nature and beautiful trees. It's kind of part of the zone situation. But I do feel like that is a very unique and beautiful area. I wish the developers had purchased it and included it as part of the green space. I don't know if they wouldn't have. But so technically, all the properties in the area could be coming here with the same exact thing. The Cosibas could come in and rezone their property or choose to develop it as FR1, but then just have it split up into 1 acre lots. And anyone in that whole area.
Yeah, any FR1. Our land use plan says that a single family land district at 1 dwelling units without public sewer or 2.
Yeah, or they could come in and request, someone could purchase all those properties as one and create a single family development per the land use plan. They could request that, right?
Yes, you can combine ones to make it a subdivision.
Mr. Wicks, has there been any discussions about the neighboring property owners maybe purchasing this property or part of it to help preserve the woods and so they could own it?
I'm sorry, you mean like purchasing part of my property to preserve? No, because that would kind of take away the ability to develop it as I'm trying to do. I mean, I guess eventually if there are lots there and one of the neighbors wanted to buy the lot, that certainly would be on the table. That's correct. Yeah.
The specific, one of the things we committed to along the northern part of the property, can you read that again with the utility lines and even trees? Sound.
I think I captured it. I think somebody had a question on, if utility work is being done in the preservation area. Yeah. Are you going to replace the trees if that's where the case? I mean, it's to the residents' point. I don't know how you can control any impact And there is,
The only utility that's going to be through there would be tying into that existing sewer, which is 30 feet north of my property line. So we have to connect to that manhole and drag a sewer into the property. No other utilities will be back there. I mean, it'll be the water and the storm will be out front. I beg your pardon? Yeah, water line, yes, correct. So if it's within a utility easement, which I'll have to plat easements, we're not going to be replacing trees within that, what would probably be a 25-foot wide easement going north and south between two properties. But the rest of it, we don't expect to have to do any grading or clearing within that 25-foot buffer.
Where that sewer easement be? Coming down the wall.
You can see it right between the two central lots there. You can see it. Yeah, 19.
So basically, it's concrete and there's being sprayed around there. And if you're doing sewer lines, they're quite deep and they're really wide when they dig, so there's a lot of destruction. And it sounds like that they, replaced, even if something were to be replaced, and even if I were to replace it, you can't have at least 60 foot, 80, 90 foot trees. And that's why we'll be opposed to this. I'm glad that the zoning has a section for immediate vicinity, and it sounds like immediate vicinity is universally against this. I'm glad it's in the zoning.
I have a couple things to add once you're done with questions, if I may. So there were a lot of people who, and I recognize this is very emotional for a lot of people, but there were some people who kind of are imploring you to stick to the code, maintain the FR1 and follow the code. Your code actually dictates how the property should be developed, and that's what the comprehensive land use plan says. And it says in this area that new development with central sewer should be developed at 2 units to the acre. It doesn't give you the right to say it has to stay FR1, because that's not actually what the recommendations are in your code. So you are following the rules and you're following your code by doing that. And then I know Ms. Knapp mentioned something about a lawsuit. I mean, I think maybe that's happened in the past, but I'm not sitting here threatening a lawsuit if this doesn't get passed. So I think that's been kind of blown out of proportion a little bit. Let me see if there's anything else here I wanted to address. Hillary talked about they had to tunnel to get access to the sewer. I don't have that part of the plat in front of me, but that's most likely because she was going through an open space that was platted as part of Cross Creek, and that most likely said that it was a do not disturb zone. If it was platted that way, that means they can't go in there and dig it up. We don't have a do not disturb zone on our property or within the sanitary sewer easement, so it's a different set of rules that apply there. The creek is actually not on her property; it's several feet north of her property, so she had to go into the open space to access that. But that's fine. That's my understanding of it, anyhow. Somebody mentioned purchase property on Old State, and I'm delinquent on taxes. I have no idea what that is, but I don't think that really affects what we're doing here. Yeah, we still have that, but there's no taxes due this year because we did the lot split. That's right. And that's all I had written down from public comment.
It's hard to take notes. Yeah, just over.
Okay. Anybody else? Mind to say your name.
Yeah, you want me to say it again?
Sure.
Melissa Famia, 3210. I have a quick question about how mature trees on other people's property are going to be protected from death from root damage if he has less than 100 to 150 feet buffer. They're not going to be protected. They're going to die within 3 years if their roots get damaged. And like to your point, these are mature, beautiful trees that even if they get replaced, we'll never enjoy it again. So just had that question.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just want to address it. Came on. That is not the case, by the way. That is not why we had more underneath it. We were actually told that it was a federally protected swale. Unfortunately, Delaware County, much to my dismay, cannot explain that to me now. We already incurred the additional fees and expenses, and that ship has long since sailed, but that's what we were told, and it showed up on the development plan. We were actually connecting to the sewer through an easement, and that's what we were told. I suspect it has to do something with the development plan, not my development plan, but I guess the property plan for this area, that we were supposed to be protecting that ravine and those areas, and we weren't allowed to touch it. So I'm unfortunate that that's been changed.
When did you build?
2017. And by the way, it took us 18 months to split 4 acres into two acres. I guess it would have been a lot easier for us to, let's see, 4 acres, we could have done like 10 homes. Had I only known, I guess I would have purchased the whole lot and be in Florida right now. 2789 East Orange Road. And just for the record, I'm really not against development. And Mr. Ricks knows my biggest concern, because I'm not abutting to this. I have sympathy for all my neighbors, but it's the school zone, and it's the traffic and the safety concerns. That is my biggest concern. So I echo my neighbor that talked about, it's just a matter of time if we continue this type of development, that there's going to be an unfortunate accident on Orange Road.
Hossein Gary, 2929 East Orange Road. Just wanted to answer, there was one question I think that Mr. Weeks mentioned about the 3 lots on 1 acre. How is that even like reasonable? I want to say, I think you can include the common areas and all of the property, but you have to be able to divide your property in 1 acre areas, including the common areas, the permanent green area, the road, everything. But you should be able to only show 3 lots on that area. I think this rule is followed by every single subdivision that we have around. They might be smaller in size, but they will follow this. I can show you. I mean, like, bring up the map and I can actually dimension it and show exactly how it is shown. There is one great example, I think, right next to us, I think, and I was looking at the Google map and I am sure that is how it is, including the roads though. Like, it is allowed to include the road into your area, but you should be able to only show 3 houses in that 1 acre. This will not happen in this development, and I think that is a rule. It is in the book, and I don't know why we are like kind of dismissing it. It's right now in the book. There was another question about the Evans Farms and comparison. I mean, just look at that size of that development and what they are bringing to the neighborhood. I don't think there is any comparison between this one, which is a dead end. You don't even have a pass-through road. Like, all other subdivisions around us are providing the road and like the sidewalks, included some parks in them. You can actually go use them for everybody. This one doesn't have any of it. And like, for example, as another example, the Walker Wood Road right now, like the road in the subdivision is actually replacing what the Bell Canyon that is closed right now. Yeah, I want to say just like, this is not a similar comparison. Like, this is not a fair comparison to like those bigger developments that actually add value to the neighborhoods. So please do not give like the same benefits as, for example, some other developments have. This is significantly different. And I think there was a drawing, it was discussed as 23 lots. There is one drawing that actually we didn't see it, but I think it was shared. I am sure that one includes a lot of development in the ravine area. So I don't know if that's even a feasible plan. It is just something to kind of say that it can be done, but that is the reason that it was not proposed at the first place. I am sure if it was something that was feasible and was something that was like financially beneficial, that would have been proposed. The reason that this is the alternative and nobody wants to be nobody wants it to be on the formal records is because of that, because that one is not a feasible plan. It's just something to negotiate. So yeah, that's all my comments. Thank you.
Gonna close public comment. Anything else? Any other questions that we have?
Did we address most of the questions? I feel like I was trying to write them down. Are there any questions? I guess we just are closing it, but was there anything?
Did anybody not get their concern?
Yeah.
Question you wanted answered?
We didn't answer my question about her to read.
Okay.
The retention.
Yeah.
John, can you speak to that?
I don't know where the 150-foot number came from. I certainly wouldn't be for every tree, but I mean, we're going to do excavation to build the sewers and the storm drainage and stuff as necessary to plat the lots. I don't have a comment on whether that would affect neighboring trees. It certainly wouldn't be our intent to do that. And we're not installing deep sewers up along the property line. It's all within the center of the property.
I would go with 17 because we have trees that are more than twice as tall as us.
I guess in response, we're not digging deep into the ground around the perimeter of the project. All the infrastructure's along the streets, with the exception of that sewer that we're tying into.
First, I want to thank all the residents for coming out this evening. This is not necessarily public speaking, being a pleasant experience. And wish we were under better circumstances. But I kind of want to lay out my thoughts on what the question is we're trying to actually answer tonight. Before I do that, I want to first mention the very valid safety concerns that were brought up. We respect that. Unfortunately, that's not grounds for making a zoning decision, but I promise you that we're going to look forward to improving the safety along Orange Day. So we can, as we see potentially more, I think 20% increase in student population projected in the next 10 years in the district.
5,000 students the next time.
Yeah, so it's beyond even, so we're able to look to address that regardless of what happens here tonight. But going back to the question of what I think we're here to address, I don't think this is a question, the current plan that we have before us and farm residential, even though it's currently zoned that way, what we have is the potential of this plan or a 23 lot plan with no divergences. I don't think if we were to disapprove this current plan before us and that a 23 lot plan would come before us, that we would have any legal grounds to vote down that 23 lot plan. And that 23 lot plan comes with less green space. So I think as a board, and I don't want to necessarily speak for the other board members here, but we're trying to make the best of what is not a good situation, not an ideal situation. To that point, resident participation is extremely important when it comes to making these types of zoning decisions. I know it's not going to be able to affect what we're doing here tonight, but I want to encourage you to stay involved. And we have a zoning code rewrite that's happening next year. Stay involved. We've talked a lot this evening about cluster housing, and I don't think almost anyone in this room is in favor of cluster housing. So please provide that feedback as we're moving forward with the new zoning code rewrite. We'll also be looking at redoing our land use plan in the next several years. So please stay involved with that as well, because our community, for better or worse, is rapidly changing. And the only way that we can ensure that we don't have surprise developments or your neighbor's property turning out some way that you might have anticipated, is to get involved early. So those are my comments. That's how I kind of see the question that's before us tonight. And if we were to get into that situation, having a 23 home plan with less green space and not having any legal grounds to potentially disapprove that plan, keep property farm residential. Personally, I think what we had for us is the best option.
We don't get to say, do all the design work for a 23 lot no plan. And we bring it to the community and we say, pick A or B. That's not how it works. So we say yes or no on this, and John can go back and say, well, it was 23. We can't say, well, just kidding, I want to do one. So.
But you can say no. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Comment. Close.
I'm sorry, everybody. We did close public comment. Thank you.
To Erica's point, in addition to Erica's point, this isn't the end of the process. So this is a zoning decision based on this property. This is one step and many steps. We've talked about engineering permitting. We've talked about green protection. Those are concerns that will need to be addressed as these lots are potentially developed. And those are outstanding questions, but those aren't questions that we're here tonight to address. We're just here to address the plan that's in front of us based on what the alternative would be.
Again, unfortunately, public comment is closed. We are the board's making a decision to what we have in front of us today.
Mr. Wicks declined to Mr. Wicks declined to introduce that plan into the public record. That's his choice as the applicant for the zoning application. I wish that weren't the case, but that's the situation that we have for us.
Yeah, if he gave it to us to hold, then it would be a public record, but since he took it back, what is in our minds is not a public record, unfortunately. Now, there is, and Mr. Ringel was saying that this is not the end, but there is something called a referendum that the residents could file a petition. If we chose to approve this, you can file a petition in court to have this voted on. And it's a lengthy process. It might just be, I'm looking it up now, 8%.
I think it just increased it to 15%.
Is it 15? Okay.
To be able to get on a ballot. If you get on a ballot, then it's up to all the residents of the township, to whoever votes to say yes or no.
And that could be on any elections of the next, I don't think that there was one on the next election, yeah. So if it's 15 now, then you have 15% of the residents probably voting. Most likely 8% of the, yeah. You can look it up, but it's 8% of, I think, the people who voted in the last governor's election in the area. You could get a petition, hire an attorney, put that on the ballot, and have it submitted to the electorate. That is also an option, so that people have an option there.
You get changed.
Is it 15 now?
It just was changed in the last budget.
That's not a lot of people. And probably 12,000, 15,000.
Based on the population.
Not the number of people, but.
Sorry.
I think I can't just talk out the top of my head, honestly. Yeah, something to look into, and you would obviously.
It's not something that could be.
No, we would.
You would work with the residents, and I just want to let you know that that's not, it is a lengthy process, but you could, yeah, it says an amendment that is approved by the county or township legislative authority becomes effective 30 days after the date of the adoption, unless a valid and sufficient referendum petition is filed with the legislative authority within 30 days. And then it will be submitted to the electors of that area for approval or rejection. 90 days before. So you can look that up. This might be old because it says 8%, but yeah, there's an Ohio Revised Code section here, but it's not a ton of people, but it is possible to have it submitted. And then you would do your own campaign and stuff, but I came into this feeling a different way, but I would really like to see those 6 lots on the west side removed. Or the north, wait.
That's the screen house.
The left side of the way. Yeah, north. I'm directionally challenged.
16
Yeah, I'm having conflicting feelings about that because I feel like it should have been on purchase. It's your property, you bought it wanting to development. It's in the land use plan, but if that part was removed, you could still have the high density, maybe even get an extra lot at the front. I don't know. I'm just stuck, but well, in exchange for deleting all 6 of those lots at the back.
That is actually not treated.
Right.
What, the,
Front 15 lots.
yeah, it's not treated other than what's along the ravine. Any trees that are there along the perimeter, we're preserving. Well, most that are within the setback, we're preserving.
Is there a possibility, because I know you could develop the FR1, you could build 11 homes, you would not need to come to the township to do that. We'd have no input, you could bulldoze everything within, legal requirements. Would you, I just think that would resolve a lot of the issues here. It would also add value to your property because those residents would have the benefit of having that beautiful area to spend as open space and green space. And I do feel that the entire plan does not advance well for the township, especially after reconsidering. But is there I mean, you might already know too, yes, votes, but it is a beautiful area.
The safety concern that I think Mrs. Kasiba brought up about kids crossing, like originally I was like, yeah, that's cool, let's stop the traffic, but with the rapid flashing beacon, but crossing right there without, because there isn't a stoplight at the entrance there, would be pretty dangerous.
I feel like the whole section should not be seen.
Unfortunately, that's not a zoning issue, the safety, but we are addressing that by providing something that's been proven in the township to work. Personally, I
prefer a flashing beacon there, but not have one and have kids attempt to potentially cross the street.
And the flashing beacon, we have one right here, and it stops the traffic.
Yeah, and I don't think the school district, I don't think they would allow them to cross there unless it was safe. They would actually, it's crazy to sound like a bus because they have certain requirements for.
Right, just like two left, like safe house bus. They can, well, right now, I think of families that are there, it stops at the end of the way. So it wouldn't go in. Everybody would have to go to the front out and get on the bus.
They could turn around and cul-de-sacs.
Yeah, but like, that could be just the I mean, maybe not for elementary, but middle and high.
I guess people would just play around across the street anyway, but they would.
And we have stories of kids trying to cross 23 from.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And honestly, it's terrible, super dangerous to cross at McCammon Estates Drive crossing Walker Boulevard when all the high schoolers are coming to school in the morning. I have residents reach out to me and I've spoken with the school district about that as well. So that's, on Walker Boulevard, which is already on that month.
But I mean, eventually this property, if we turn this down, it will probably develop at some point. We'll take trees down. I think a good compromise would be if you would agree to eliminate those 6 lots. And maybe you can't do that, but I just feel like the entire area is going to be completely decimated and the character.
I understand that. I did show you the area. A lot of the areas where the houses are shown and where the street's shown is not as densely wooded as the area down in the ravine. We're protecting the ravine. That is adding to the welfare of the property versus clear cutting it and doing 11 lots, which isn't my desire. I don't want to do that. I feel like asking me to take 6 lots off is extremely arbitrary, and it doesn't make the numbers work at all on this project. What I did do voluntarily was drop 2 lots off, so I'm well under the allowable density. So that's my give back when I was trying to appease some of the people on the zoning commission. So I've done my part and conceded those 2 lots and increased open space well above 20% that's required to create a space down there that allows more people than just my family to experience that nice area down there.
See where the ponds are.
It's a mulch path. Yeah, we would install a mulch path for the pedestrians to go. No, the intent is to be able to avoid the existing trees by meandering through.
But you could eliminate those lots and a lot of these issues would go away, plus would be preserved.
That's not what I'm proposing though, Lisa. That's not on the table.
And it still wouldn't speak to.
Yeah, really what the question comes down to is does it make sense to try to cluster some of the lots up front so that we can preserve more of the green space? If not, if the divergences are the real sticking point, like I said, I've got a plan that I'm willing to submit. Yes, it'll pass muster. No, I haven't shared it with everybody, but I'm confident as an engineer and a land planner that it will go through.
And I'm
yeah. Is there a way to configure those to make them slightly smaller, to add 1 or 2 more houses while still preserving?
No.
There's no way.
No, believe me, I've looked at this every possible way. That's not what I'm proposing.
Hey guys.
Yeah. So I guess this is what the board has in front of you today. If there are changes that you would like to make, we can continue the application and request a new plan. I know the applicant did provide some new standards in front of us today too that are not as. I don't have a hard copy. Yes, I'm going to do that now. So that could be incorporated into the zoning text.
We also need the confirmation that trees along Stevens strip on the east side of the property are going to match up. So I would like that to be added to the.
Yeah, we can add that language to that document that I'm willing to sign and date and put in as part of the record.
Say that again. We can take back the existing, but just making sure he's committed to putting the trees on this driveway, so that mirror what it currently has.
What you provided the site plan, is that what's on the screen?
Yes, it is.
Okay, let's do a 10-minute recess. Do some typing else. Is there anything else that we want to get for?
What about the trees, the replacement trees that will replace any large trees that are taken down? How do we prevent those from being taken down later though? Like if they die?
Later after the house is built? Well, I mean, if they die, they're going to die. I mean, the builders they're incentive. With that note, they're incentivized to preserve as many trees as possible and design the house to work around the existing trees. Well, they can cut them down. They just have to replace them inch for inch.
They can't have their trees down. That conservation.
That's why I wrote it that way, so that it would be planted in the tree preservation zone where you cannot remove trees.
That's sanitary.
Yeah.
Where is this?
Yeah, the sanitary easement is typically 20 feet wide, centered on the sewer, so 10 feet either side of where that comes in. And that's, unfortunately, that is the location where the existing manhole is. So that's where we have to tap in. No, it's 30 feet. That's right. Right, that's right. Yeah. No. We're going perpendicular to the easement. Yes, correct. Yeah.
Because your property was built in '04, so.
No, it's in, so it's closer to his land than it's on land. And it's
Because it
also,
was serving properties.
yeah, and it's also not just the.
It's
I think it's.
wide enough to do the work.
Yeah. It's like 1 feet.
John, I know that the HOA text isn't like legislative, but as I was here, it's a couple of times, it's like, it's from township, I have all places. Sometimes it says orange, that's good. Also said that, the maximum annual assessment, which I don't, that was, but anyway, it expired in 2019.
It's just a sample.
Just a sample.
Yeah, I just provided a sample. I haven't gone through it to amend it to match this project yet. I think I pulled that from the 91 lot subdivision, which is finished up in Berlin Township.
Yes.
And it's 15% of the people who voted in the last gubernatorial election.
Let's take a 10-minute recess, come back at 8:50, 8:08, sorry. 8:08. Yep. Where you go?
Oh, I think.
Sorry, just kidding. Testimonies yourself.
Oh, okay. We're still in it. We're just adding. Yeah.
16.
Was that for, you want that for all the houses?
Yeah. You would like to do it? 16 through 20. You see the list. Oh, read.
It's actually, well,
Did he get that the mentioned beginning? Yeah. I'm gonna read it.
where my beard was brown when I started this process.
Oh, I can speak to this. So in the very first zoning commission hearing, we had a alternate zoning member say something to the effect of, they as the zoning commission are held to the code, but the trustees can do whatever they want. So that is not true. We as the trustees are also held to the code, just as the zoning commission is. They are in the field experts in, like Mr. Trabellis is an architect. I don't know what everybody else is, but this is in their wheelhouse what they do, review plans, that kind of stuff, even more for a living than we do. And we obviously do super deep dives into this as well. So just so they recommend to us based on their deep dive, and then we do our own deep dive. But again, we are all held to.
Probably one resident during the break that it has happened where a developer has sued a township and the end resulting plan, which is ordered by a judge, ends up being much worse than what was actually proposed. They don't just even have to accept the plan. That's legally binding.
And Trustee Knapp has been in zoning since like 1998, so you've seen many things. So not always in the trustee one, but she also works in zoning and so
thousands of me.
She has lots and lots of experience. Okay.
If you want to read the modifications first, make sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna read the modifications just to make sure you're.
Yeah.
Add 25-foot side tree preservation zone to lot 7 and show a no-build zone. Add 25-foot rear tree preservation zone to rear lots 3, 4, 5, and 6 and show as a no-build zone. Increase setbacks and tree preservation zones along the sides of lots 17, 18, and 21 to 25 feet and show as dedicated no-build zones and add new trees where none currently exist. Side yard setback for lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 shall be 10 feet. The side yard setback for lots 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 shall be 12.5 feet. A maximum encroachment of 2 feet into the side yard setbacks will be permitted for fire reasons. Developers shall not clear trees on lots 18, 19, 20, and 21 beyond what is required to install utilities, roads, stormwater management, and other infrastructure necessary to plat buildable lots. The developer or builder shall be required to preserve as many healthy trees over 6-inch caliber as practical on these lots. Any such trees over 6-inch caliber that are removed shall be replaced inch for inch by the builder within that lot's tree preservation zone. Developer shall install trees along the eastern property line that mirror the tree line of the neighboring property as much as is practicable. Homes built on lots 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 shall have exterior colors that are primarily earth tones such as greens, grays, or blues. Developers shall submit a development.
Wait, can you, no white? Yeah. Right, no white? No white?
At all, or just the primary?
What do you think?
You can have white accents.
Yeah, no, the primary color, yeah. No, they're primarily white, and no, that have the primary color is white.
White, primary, I would say white is not a primary.
I don't, yeah, that's fair.
The primary tone of that
Primary.
particular house. Yeah, it's not a code.
Okay, I'm gonna read that again. Homes built on lots 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 shall have exterior colors that are primarily earth tones, such as greens, grays, and blues. White is not a permitted primary tone on these 6 lots. Developer shall submit a development plan and development text to Orange Township that incorporates these modifications.
What about the exterior lighting, the downlighting on those 4 lots? You said, and how would we word that?
Yeah, I don't have the language that you're asking for. So.
Yeah, Michelle, so basically, you know how we don't have the exposed bulbs, even though it's technically not downlighting. Yeah, but it does, and like I mentioned, my neighbor's house is at a very high elevation in the woods, and it has like soffit lighting.
We can do shielded lights or muted lights.
Yeah, because you don't want
Shielded exterior lights would be utilized on lot 16.
Yeah, I mean, we require downlighting anyways.
Yeah.
But it's different, like you can have an exposed back porch bulb, like everyone has just, you know.
Yes, so shielded. The word shielded would cover that.
Yes.
I'm fine.
So. Yeah, all of us. So that would help keep some of the light pollution down.
But you're saying for the front and back?
Oh, just on
those 6 lots.
Yeah, on the back.
Back.
The back.
Yeah, just on the back.
Just in the back, yeah, of those 4.
To minimize the impact of those 5 lots that back up to my 4 lot.
Yeah, because the other 2 should be shielded the way, actually, I think.
Or, so section 21, section 21.12, 1 says that all exterior shall be fixtures. A portion of a lane reflector, lens, or bracket system may extend beyond the housing or shield so as to be visible from off-site and the same light glare. All light fixtures shall be directed downward. Lighting is prohibited except for absent lighting for buildings or signs. Exterior residential lights. Okay, so it does say exterior residential lights are exempt from subsections 1, 2, and 3 above, where the initial lumen output does not exceed 2850 lumens, equivalent to a 150 watt.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Without the exemption.
Without the exemption, yeah.
John, are you?
1 month.
I'm fine with that language. Yeah.
And all of the things,
I beg your pardon?
all of the things, most of them were white.
Everything you've read so far, yeah.
That was allowed.
Okay, yeah, and you mentioned that I need to resubmit. Is there a deadline to get them back and how many copies? And
We need 1 more.
okay. 2 weeks.
I mean, before the referendum period.
Got it.
And can you ask the county, you said you have to build a very large retention pond, but that the township can encourage the county, that they might be able to build when we were walking the property, they might be able to build, if we could request a smaller pond, if possible, that we prefer a small.
I'm still going to pursue that. Basically, there are 2 types of water, stormwater control. There's a retention pond and a stormwater quality pond. Every other development that discharges directly into Oak Creek was exempted from doing stormwater retention, and they just had to do water quality. And so I asked them to give me the same consideration on this so I could build a smaller pond, and they declined, but I'm not done talking to them about it, especially if the township. No, it'll control the stormwater within the property as needed to not flood anything.
But that was fewer trees would be taken down, and they wouldn't allow him to build a pond that doesn't comply, but they would like it as small as possible.
Yeah, and so, but if the township's on board with that, then they'd be more likely to probably do that.
Yeah, he said we express a desire for that.
Built 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 shall comply with section 21.12 D1, section 21.12 D2, section 21.12 D3, Orange Township zoning resolution. So that basically just says they're not exempt.
But they have to add the
Exactly.
the exemption.
But the specific section, shielding and then, then they'll, might also, I think, as eventually that. And when they do the amended future, that it's captured, so say, currently effective, amended.
And I think we were committing only to 18 through 21, not including 16 and 17.
Oh. We did 117. I think you're right. I don't think
It was primarily Lisa's concern about the backyards and how that would impact the 5 lots that back up to these 4 lots.
You want.
Okay, lights for homes built on lots 15, 19, 20, and 21 shall comply with section 21.12 D1, section 21.12 D2, and section 21.12 D3 of the Orange Township zoning resolution currently in effect or as amended in the future.
But that part includes an exemption.
No, we didn't reference that.
Section.
Oh, it's a separate section.
But it's that exception, that specifically say, has to apply.
Oh, I see. Okay, all right.
And the developer shall submit a development plan and development text to the township that reference these modifications.
Okay. Is there anything else that we can?
So I make a motion to approve resolution 23-294 to adopt the recommendation of approval with modifications of the zoning commission as to zoning application CON 23-3 of John Wicks for Orange Cove Single Family Plan Residential District SFP.
Second. Mrs. Fouts?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Ray? Yes.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming out.
Thank you.
We've tried